One of the most common questions we get at Ag PhD is, what's the right planting population for corn or for soybeans?
Well, that's magical, Brian. It's 150,000 for soybeans and 32,000 for corn. If everybody just did that, we'd be set, right? No, everybody farms a little bit different. And depending on your tillage, where you're at in the country, what kind of soils you have, and just your whole management program, this is going to vary quite a bit. And the cool thing that's happened in agriculture in my lifetime has been variable rate planting. When I was a kid, variable rate planting meant, hey, we're going on the heavy ground, we're going to go a little bit heavier on planting population. Now we're going to go on the light ground, we're going to cut back planting population. It was one adjustment per field, if that. Some guys just said, well, the best thing for my farm is this setting, I'm going to run with that everywhere. Now we see guys making multiple adjustments as they're going through individual fields, and in most cases, that's a pretty good thing if you can kind of guess how the weather's going to do.
Well, yeah, the weather is a big factor here, but I just think about in our own operation, we've got some very sandy spots where literally I can go from 25 CEC down to 4 CEC in the same field. Well, in that 4 CEC on dry land farming, where we only get 20, 22 inches of rain some years, we had 13 inches in 2013. Okay, you can imagine how good those spots turned out, right? So the point is, why are we putting all the inputs into spots like that? That's not very good management, not very good use of our dollars. So what we're doing is cutting dramatically in those areas. We might be going 35,000 plants per acre in corn on the good areas and 20,000 plants per acre in the bad areas, maybe even less. The other thing that we're excited about going forward is being able to change varieties as we cross the field. If you can do that too, and then, hey, maybe I can match up something in that bad area, that sandy area, I can have a drought corn, but then in the other area, I have my racehorse hybrid. Those are great things. A lot of people get worried though that, oh, it sounds too complicated and I can't do that. Do you want to know how long it takes us grand total to set up everything for our farm on 2,700 acres? About an hour. And we can set up all the variable rate maps. We can do everything. It's not that tough. It's a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes per field once you get going. No big deal. A lot of this software is easy to use. Just ask your 13-year-old kid and I'm sure he'll be happy to help you out.
Well, don't get too carried away when you're switching up your planting populations. If you say, well, I normally do around 30,000, don't go to 10,000 on the light soil and 50,000 on the high. Make small adjustments first and then work from there. If this is your first time doing it, you know what, maybe you vary from 25 to 34 or something like that. If 30 is kind of the primary target. Vary a little bit, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 one way or another on corn, and then work your way out. Maybe you find out, hey, that sandy ground, you know what, 22 works much better for me. That's fine. But your chances of getting there in 1 year and guessing the perfect population are slim and none.
Well, I would say though, a lot of people are trending toward higher populations in corn, and we haven't necessarily seen that always pay. So run some numbers yourself on your farm. Maybe you can shave at 1,000 or 2,000 plants per acre in a lot of areas, especially where you don't have the fertility, and especially when you start thinking about, hey, I'm going to really bump this. I want to go to 38,000. You might be facing disaster if you don't have proper fertility in your ground. And I'm talking specifically about, yeah, everybody wants to focus on nitrogen, but I'm talking potassium. Where we've had low potassium levels, and I've seen it all over the country, low potassium levels do not push that plant population. You're headed for trouble and you're headed for a lot of lodging. Let's turn to soybeans just really quick. About the only area where I see, oh, we should really bump that population is for some of these IDC guys.
Well, I'd say a couple of things here, because in soybeans, they will self-thin. So if you overdo it on population, the soybean plants can, for the most part, compensate. Where we're having more problems, though, is guys that are going with low populations. We're seeing these IDC spots get even worse in fields. If you have more plants in those areas that are high pH, higher salt, higher carbonates, higher nitrates, those kinds of things, we have more plants kicking out organic acids into the soil, lowering that pH temporarily, and we can survive in those areas better. The other thing is with weed control. As we try to cut our seed population trying to save money, we leave more open space for light to get through, and we have even worse weed problems. I'm amazed how many times I talk to guys that say, I don't understand it. This one field, I just can't control the pigweed, and then I get out there, well, I'm going with 110,000 population, or I'm going with 100,000 population.
Final stand. Yeah.
That's simply not working. So you may get back to 150,000 or even a little bit stronger.
So you can get that 130, 140,000 final stand.
Correct.
All right, well, once again, you know, hey, if you want to switch populations on your farm, you want to vary it across the field, we think that's good management. You can do this pretty simply and easily on your farm, and we do think it's good technology. And like Darren said, hey, if you want to bump your populations, that's a good thing for weed control, especially if you've got our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?